Welcome. You're tuned into Life is a Sacred Journey. Every week, we bring a new perspective to aging and caregiving. Here is your host, Michelle Pope.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the virtual neighborhood of Life is a Sacred Journey. My name is Michelle Pope, and I am your host here at Life is a Sacred Journey. We are a podcast that has been engaged in sharing with the community how it feels to be a caregiver, what it feels like to be aging in this time. We are advocates against ageism, and we really want to have a broad spectrum of conversation around just even life, life in general. We had a conversation at the end of the 2024 about, dating and being single over 60. And so great conversation. And then we have guests that come on from around the world, actually, and who have written books or want to share their experience about their caregiving. And this morning, we have an incredible person. Jeanette Yates is a lifelong caregiver who uses her decades of experience to help women caring for their aging parents take back their time without guilt. And Jeanette works with guilt-trapped caregivers to help them start living life again in 2 months without guilt, even if they are worried their family will think they are selfish. She has speaking topics that include why self-care for caregivers sucks and what to do instead, how to set your boundaries, which I think is a really good one.
Yes.
I happen to listen to her podcast, why it is crucial for caregivers to prioritize their health. And, we've talked about a lot about that here on Life is a Sacred Journey. And her podcast, From Guilt to Good. I found it on Spotify. So check it out. And listen and learn, and the thing that I've learned about podcasts, Jeanette, and my Life is a Sacred Journey neighborhood, is that you can save them and you can go back to them. It's just like the books that I have.
Right.
You can go back and then you can figure out where the person said something that you liked or something that you want to kind of resonate, and you can hold it there. I
Yep.
mean, it's really cool. You
Yeah.
take up a lot of space, whereas your podcast can be
Yeah,
on your
it's
phone.
right there.
So
And I'm getting ready. I've been interviewing people all month. I'm getting ready to drop some new episodes. We're going to have some really good stuff coming out. So I hope everybody will hop on there. Go ahead and subscribe so that you can get them. They'll be dropping soon. So thank you for that. Thank you for that shout out to get the party started.
Absolutely. So welcome to Life is a Sacred Journey, Jeanette. We're really happy to have you here. I did listen to some of your podcasts, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is what I know a lot of people need to hear. I've been, working with caregivers for quite some time. And the one thing always that comes up, I mean, it varies from person to person because we're all unique and wonderfully made individuals. So we manifest things in different ways. But guilt comes up in every conversation that I have had, whether it's a child caring for their loved one, or not being able to care for their loved one and having to look for assisted living or whatever, or if it's a spouse or a partner, a best friend, somebody who is in that care partner mode for that individual is feeling like guilty that they didn't do the right thing. They're not doing the right thing. And so why don't we start by you sharing your journey, and then, why did this topic or this emotion, because that's what guilt is, emotion kind of tap into you in a way that you wanted to share with others?
Yeah, there's a lot. And yes, guilt is something that it's, we have mom guilt, we have parent guilt, we have wife guilt, we have, all the types of guilt. It's everywhere, but especially in caregiving. But my caregiving journey is started when I was 8 years old. My mom was diagnosed with her, what I like to say, her first illness. She has several diagnoses since then. But in 1984, she was diagnosed with a disease called myasthenia gravis. Myasthenia gravis is a rare disease, but it has different ranges. In her
Okay.
case, it became, it over the years would be at times very debilitating for her. And then she would have times where she was less debilitated. But it was always present. And then, of course, in the last 14 years or so, we've seen quite a steady, slow decline at first, but more rapid in the last several years. And so it's just been a long journey of caregiving, learning. And I didn't know I was caregiving when I was age
Yep.
8. I was just being a
Yep.
good daughter, helping
Yep.
mommy out like we all do. And a lot of times it was little thing, like I remember helping her count her pills out. I remember getting her things to drink. I remember cooking dinner. I remember the help with the laundry, like it was little things like that. And then of course, as an adult, what started, she lived on her own for a while, and then she lived on her own, but needed to be closer to me. And then she lived on her own and needed to be even closer to me. And then she spent more and more time getting more and more debilitated, more and more time in the hospital, more treatments that would work for a while and then didn't, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm.
And I, shockingly so, that's a joke, it's not shocking, I got burned out. I woke up, this is the way I describe it. I woke up one day, which I was in the car, but I was like suddenly
Well,
aha
I know
moment
what you mean.
and was like, what is happening to me? What is going on in my life? This sucks. My mom was, had no business living on her own. Also, it was obvious by that point that moving her in with me wasn't going to help the problem. She was that debilitated.
Yeah.
Okay. And I want to circle back to that in a minute. But anyway, and she had absolutely made me promise since the time I was 8 years old, I would never, ever, ever, ever put her in a home. Don't ever let me go there. If she ever had to go to the short-term rehab, how they do after a fall or something, you have to go. It was like, get me out as soon as you can, like just this. And I knew two things. One, I could not keep going the way I was going. And number two, I didn't know what else to do. And that was when I knew something was going to have to give. And the first thing after I tried to just like fix everything, just do things differently, like I tried that for a while and that still didn't work because I was still burned out. What I realized was I was not using tools at my disposal or resources at my disposal or support at my disposal because of the guilt about what that would mean in my head. So in order for me to get rid of the chronic burnout, and I was just talking to another caregiver right before I hopped on here, and we both are of the mindset, you cannot avoid burnout as a caregiver.
Exactly.
Okay.
I agree.
Well, like you can't avoid burnout, period. Like it's going to happen. You're going to get too tired. You're going to get too exhausted. You're going to get all those things. What we want to do is lessen the frequency of the burnout and the intensity of the burnout.
Right.
And she had a great thing. Her name's Suzanne White. She says, you're going to hit the wall. Do you want to do it at 150 miles an hour or like 10 miles an hour? Which I thought was genius. Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I had to address my guilt, which is in my way of, using her metaphor was like learning how to slow down, how to get control of how I was moving through the world, interacting with my mom as a caregiver, interacting in my life outside of caregiving, which part of my problem was I had basically stopped doing any of that.
Yeah.
I was too, exhausted to really engage in any other part of my life. I just wanted to be left alone and quiet or sleep, and I had thought I was doing everything right, and I was still feeling guilty. I was still not feeling good. I read all the articles about caregiver burnout and caregiver healthcare, and I was doing all the things. I had my gratitude journal. I was doing yoga every day. I was working out. And you know what? I was still burned out,
Right.
and I still felt guilty.
Right.
And so what I learned, and of course this didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen for me in 2 months, y'all, but I've narrowed it down a little bit. It happened over years. I got into therapy. I started addressing why I was feeling guilty. What were some of the beliefs that I had about myself as a person, as a daughter, as a caregiver that just weren't true,
Yes.
or were, skewed. And that is what allowed me to overcome the chronic burnout that I was experiencing. I had to address generational trauma, generational wounds, dysfunctional patterns I had developed with my mother, because I was very, when you are told from a young age that stress could kill your mother, you try very hard not to stress her out. And when she tells you that if this doesn't happen and that doesn't happen and this doesn't happen, it's going to stress her out because she's going to be worried about her health, then you just do those things, right? And so I had developed some unhealthy coping skills to cope with my mother's stress, my mother's trauma, my mother's anxiety.
Yep.
And I had ended up basically inheriting that or letting it absorb into me. And only when I did that was I able to kind of climb out of that chronic guilt and the chronic burnout. So, that's my story.
Well, no, but what you just said, Jeanette, is so important that I always say to people, we are not just the part of the story that we're living in.
Right.
We are every piece of the story from the moment that we take breath, and live up to this point. And when we don't evaluate that story,
right,
for good, bad, or whatever, because it is what it is, and come to grips with it, we will act it out, whether it's caregiving or at the work or in a relationship. It will show, it will come to it will come to pass, as they say. That but it always affects relationships and the ability to be open, to the ability to love, the ability to not feel guilt for something that you're not responsible for. I know this well. I too. Imposter syndrome was my thing, where I had to just do everything and everything and everything. And there were reasons for it. I got it. But at the end of the day, learning to get off that treadmill and and really say, well, what is this doing for you, and why are you doing this? Asking the question why, and you speak about that in one of the podcasts that I was listening to. So can you go in?
Yeah. So one of the things I think is really important to understand, and when I work with caregivers one-on-one, or, we chat, one of the things, because everybody, there's all the Facebook groups, everybody goes in there and they're like, what am I supposed to do? X, Y, Z. And they tell their whole life story. And then of course people give them their opinion about what they should do.
Right.
And my point, and something I had to learn on my own, is it's not that doing X is right and doing Y is wrong. Probably shouldn't have used Y. Doing X is right and Z is wrong.
Right.
But you're going to have to ask yourself, why are you doing that? Right. So if you are doing X because it is the appropriate thing to do, it is necessary for your loved one, you want to be doing it, all of those are, that's if you are doing that because you don't want to tell your loved one no, if you're afraid of how they'll react if you don't do it, those kind of, it's not that it's wrong, but it's that why behind it, then you're making decisions that aren't always based on reality.
Yep.
You're basing them on fear. And whether it's in caregiving or life, work, parenting, you know, we don't want to base our decisions on fear, or to your point, that imposter syndrome, that, or like people pleasing, like I was afraid of not of everybody, of how other people would perceive my caregiving.
Mhm.
Okay. And honestly, I mean, now I do have a lot of, there are a lot of people, they are very encouraging to me about my caregiving, but there are people who say, well, I could never do that. I could never do what you did.
Right.
Like I mean, I couldn't do that to my mom.
Mhm.
And I had to get confident enough to not let that burrow into my soul.
Right. Yeah.
Like, okay, I made that decision knowing that some people, I made this decision or that decision knowing that some people wouldn't like it,
Right.
but I'm not here
There
to
you go.
please anyone else. And one of the things that I had to come to grips with, and this is a lot of times where the guilt comes in. Now, once your parent has some cognitive decline, you do have to take on more of the decision-making ability and all that kind of stuff. One of my issues was my mom had full cognitive ability. She was
Yeah.
100%. But she was not making decisions that were in her best interest
Gotcha.
as far as her health goes. Like, and she wasn't trying to not take care of herself, but she was so afraid of doing X that she kept doing Y even when it stopped being safe, for example.
Okay.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So I had to learn, well, I mean, it's her choice to do that. It's my choice to not enable that decision that she keeps making over and over again.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think a lot of times we just let, like I said, when our parents are still able to make decisions, we just let them make decisions, and then we pick up the pieces of their poor decisions.
Yes.
I'm not talking about not leaving. I'm not talking about your love, use common sense here. But what I'm saying is we can stop, micromanaging our parents who are in their right mind and just making decisions we don't like.
That's right. That's right.
And we can say, hey, that's not safe, or that's not wise, or, these are some concerns I have. We can share our opinion on the matter.
Yep.
But then if they make a decision, we have to learn where we feel comfortable stepping in and stepping out.
That's right. That's
And
right.
I'm not, again, I don't know what's right for you.
Right.
But I do know that a lot of times, so like I write about this in my new book that's out, From Guilt to Good. It's really easy to find it. It's the same as my podcast. From Guilt to Good is the podcast. From Guilt to Good Enough is the book. But one of the things I talk about is, my mom had always said from such a young age, and as I got to be an adult and she was on her own trying to manage her own care, she would say, I just need you to fill in the gaps. Well, at first, the gaps were like little cracks, little, little grocery shopping, a little, take me to the doctor. Little, no big deal. By the end of it, there were not cracks. It was like a whole open chasm. And we were, band-aiding ourselves, across this huge abyss, and we were both falling into it. So there came a time, like, yeah, if all your loved one needs to, do what they want to do, and if you don't like it, is for you to go get some groceries, maybe that's okay.
Yeah.
But when you are stretching, when you are sacrificing your own physical, emotional, financial, mental health, when you are sacrificing your other family members,
Mm-hmm.
when you are sacrificing relationships, your career, your dreams, your goals, it may be a time to reassess that. And
Yeah.
so when I work with caregivers, that's what I do, is I help them reassess. I'd never tell a caregiver, you should do this or this.
Right.
I say, let's
Right.
look at the whole picture.
Yeah.
And I always say, whenever you're considering what's the best thing for your loved one, consider yourself as part of that equation.
Yes. 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 Because you are partnered with that, you are
Yes.
tethered to that person. And it's like, I was talking to the lady the other day. She was looking for a place for her person to go and live. She was no longer physically able to care for him.
Mhm.
And she found a beautiful place, but it was 60 miles away. So I said to her, do you want to go visit? She said, oh, absolutely. I said,
How
well,
often?
how often? Exactly. And what are the best visiting hours? Is it during
Right.
the day? Is it in the evening? I mean,
Yeah.
and she decided not to choose that place because she realized that the times that she would have to visit or would want to visit were during the biggest traffic hours in the Bay Area, and that would cause her more stress
Right.
trying to get there, and then she would show up as this stressed out person.
Right.
Therefore, the quality of their visit would be
Right.
so.
Right.
We found a place that was closer, but again, that was not the consideration. The
Right.
consideration was it's beautiful, it has chandeliers, it's blah 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 blah, 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 she never considered the
Right.
amount of the drive that it would take for her to get there. And then I said, and you love this person, and you're going to have moments when maybe you just want to pop in,
Hmm.
right? You just want to go and hold his hand. And are you going to drive 60 something miles to do that?
Yeah. Right. And well, and probably what would have happened is, yeah, she probably would have. She probably
And then,
would have, and it just would have been a nightmare, right?
exactly. And
So
then,
that happens too, where we are like, well, I guess I'll just figure it out. I guess I'll just do it, you know. And while, yeah, I'm a big let's figure it out person, I just think that we're forgetting to figure out how to take care of ourselves in the middle of all of this. I
Mhm.
think we forget to consider ourselves part of the equation. I hear from caregivers all the time, and of course, I thought this myself, so I'm not pointing any fingers, you know,
Mhm.
but it's like, I have to do this. I don't have anyone else. We don't have any money to, you know, whatever.
Right.
And I say, okay, well, that may be true, but then there's people like you and me that maybe can help you find, you
Yep.
know, more
Yep.
that, but let's say for the sake of argument, it is true. There is no money. There is no one else. You're the only one. You become the linchpin of the care for your loved one. Yes. Okay. Then why wouldn't you take precious care of the most important resource that your loved one has for their care, which is you?
Mhm.
Because if something happens to you,
Oh,
what
Jeanette.
happens to your loved one? So some of the things that we have pushed off the table because we don't want to think about it, we promise not to do it, blah, blah, blah. Maybe it's time to put them back on the table and just examine it.
Mhm.
And I also want to say to any of you that are with us today,
Mhm.
and you're thinking, well, I had to put my loved one in assisted living or a nursing home, or, you know, and I feel so guilty that I'm not their caregiver. I
Yeah.
want to tell you, you are their caregiver.
Mhm. Mhm.
Whether they live with you and you do all the things all by yourself, or they live with you and somebody comes in and helps you, or they live somewhere else and you have to, you know, I can promise you that I
Mhm.
am still my mom's caregiver, even though she's been in a nursing home for almost 2 years at this point.
Okay.
I
Okay.
can promise you that nobody is under any illusion that I am not her caregiver.
Mhm.
Now, we have a whole team of people, thanks to where she lives, that help take care of her.
Yeah.
And I advocate for her, I advocate for them, and I advocate for myself.
Mhm.
All is part of that. But you are not foregoing your responsibility or your desire or your role as a caregiver by getting extra support, whether that's in your home or having to place them somewhere where you can get the respite that you need so that you can be a more confident advocate, a more present advocate. And for me, and some people may not relate to this, but I was spending so much time in caregiver mode for my mom that I had lost the part of me that was her daughter.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I said to my therapist and to myself every time I worried about it, if I have to choose to be my mom's caregiver or to be her daughter, I'm going to choose daughter every single time. Because at the end of the day, someone else can do caregiving, whether I like them or not, whether I want them to or not. But no one else can be my mom's daughter.
Right.
I'm the only one. Maybe you have a sister. They can also be the daughter. But in my case, it was just me.
Yeah.
I was the only one. And I'm
Yep.
going to choose that every single time. And I believe that even when my mom gets frustrated and, you know, annoyed or, you know, although we do love the place where she is. It's a wonderful place. But, you
That's
know,
good. Yeah, but still.
she's not in her own home. She's not, you know, she has to sleep in a, you know, whatever. She doesn't get her, you know, she had to wait an extra day to get her black eyed peas and collard greens for New Year's, you know, all that stuff. Not
Yeah.
ideal. But she knows when I show up, her daughter is there and I can sit and visit. And we're going to talk about the farm and we're going to talk about books that we've read and we're going to talk about the grandkids and you know, I can show up as her daughter.
Yes.
And that to me was more important than her being mad at me that she needed to be in a nursing home.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Everything that you're saying is just like on making my heart just go patter patter because I know there are caregivers out there, care partners out there that follow us, and all the things you have said thus far is giving them permission. They may have been thinking some of this stuff. Their friends, other people may have told them, but now a total stranger to them is saying, this is important. And it's also important because their health diminishes if they don't take care of themselves. I've had caregivers when I've said to them, you know, I need the medical records for your loved one, but may I ask you, when was the last time you went and had your physical or went to the dentist or any of those things? And they can't remember. But they can tell me everything
goodness.
it.
That's right.
And one of your wonderful podcasts, by the way, wonderful, you talk about that self-care and making sure, and you use mindfulness in your work, which I love mindfulness. So talk a little bit about that and why you chose that you know, sort of mode of.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the way I explain it. So first of all, if any of you are rolling your eyes right now because somebody wants to talk to you about mindfulness and you're don't just bear with me. Hang on. I'm going to make it fun. All right. I promise. So here's what was happening to me in the middle of my burnout. I was running. I was teaching Pilates. I was eating all the healthy things that you're supposed to do, whatever. I was, like I said, I had my gratitude journal. I had my, you know, I was praying. I went to church. I did all the things. I would get a massage every now and then. And I was so exhausted, so burned out. And I was doing all these things. I was adding just more things to the plate, just some more self-care, more self-care, more self-care, blah, 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 blah. And I felt guilty all the time. Every time I would go get a massage, and of course, I would be like, should I silence my phone? Should I not silence my phone? If I silence my phone, then I would silence my phone, you know, because it's trying to zen out. And then I would lay there and think, you know, the whole time they're like, you know, they're like rubbing my neck, and I'm going, I wonder if the phone's going to ring. I wonder if something's going to happen. Blah, blah, blah. I would do yoga. I would get to the very end. I would lay down for the ending shavasana, you know, and I would be like, how long have I been? Did I just do yoga? Like, I don't remember what I did. What did I do today? Didn't remember any pose I did. And I've been doing it for a long time. And I taught, like, I know all the, you know,
Pilates,
like,
yeah.
And like, so I began to think maybe it's not doing all these things that is going to help me. Maybe it's actually being present in the moment when I'm doing the things that's going to help me. So the big picture is I started to, like, when I was doing a massage, I was there at the massage. I was paying attention. And sometimes I had to talk myself, like, they're rubbing my forehead. They're rubbing the back of my neck. They're rubbing, like, I had to talk to myself, to stay focused. Or when I would do yoga, I would really, I would actually try to listen to the person when they're like, breathe in, breathe out. And I'm like, okay, we're doing it. And I would stay focused with the breath and stay focused, and I really had to train my brain to not go like, okay, after I'm doing this, I'm going to go to the store and like that's what I was. So I would just like try to bring it. So like at the very simplest form, it's like, be present in the moment that you're in. That's it. Now, for some people, that's really hard because our brains are going, okay, what did I do yesterday? Didn't get, you lay down at night and you're like, okay, I didn't get that done today. And I got to do that. And I forgot to turn on the dishwasher. So I got to get, we're running all this all day long. We're doing that.
Yeah.
So what I tell people to do is don't start with a massage that you're probably going to get sidetracked and your brain's going to start going somewhere because that's a long time. Right.
Yeah.
But let's start with some very small periods of time during the day where we can practice mindfulness. Not something we're adding to the plate. We're taking something we're already doing. You're not adding anything to the plate. No more things on the plate. School, yummy foods. We don't need anything else. Right. We're going to go. And I usually say toothbrushing because hopefully we're all brushing our teeth at least once a day. Although if you're a really burned out caregiver, I see you. It's okay.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to know. It's fine.
Right.
But toothbrushing is something, it's usually, if we're doing it right, 2.5 minutes. So I'm asking for 2.5 minutes of mindfulness from you. And instead of listening to the podcast and figuring out who killed what on who or whatever, and even my podcast, as much as I want you to listen to it, I do not want you to listen to it while you're brushing your teeth.
Right.
What I want you to do is shut the door.
Shut the door.
Don't let anybody else into the bathroom for 2.5 minutes. They can hold it.
Yep.
I want you to brush your teeth and just focus on brushing your teeth. I want you to get really weird about it. I want you to feel the bristles on your tongue, on your teeth, on the side of your mouth. I want you to be able to tell me what type of toothpaste, like, is this toothpaste too minty for you? Maybe you want a different toothpaste. Don't put it on your grocery list, though. We're not making a grocery list right now. We're just brushing our teeth. We're going to keep brushing. We're going to brush every tooth, just like your dentist always wants you to, and you never do.
Right.
You're going to own that moment. You're going to say to yourself while you're brushing your teeth, you're going to say, yes, look at me owning this 2.5 minutes. This is my time. This is mine. I'm taking it. For me, this is my self-care.
Yep.
And I mean, you will probably laugh about it, especially if you get really weird like I did. I mean, I was owning that. And you know what? Guess what happened, y'all? I started brushing my teeth. My dentist was never more happy. I said, you know what? I might start flossing. That'll give me another extra minute or two. Maybe do some gargling. I started, that 2.5 minutes turned into 5.5 minutes. Same thing with so just own the time that you have. You can do it with toothbrushing. You can do it in the shower. You can do it, whatever. Okay. Own that time and tell yourself, yes, I am doing this to take care of myself. Yes, I'm taking a shower because I am taking care of myself. Yes, I am eating this lunch because I'm taking care of myself. I don't even care if you're eating a cheeseburger. I don't care what you're eating. You're doing it. You're putting nutrients in your body. That's self-care.
That's self-care.
And what you're doing 2 things. One, you're learning to be present in the moment.
Yep.
That's mindfulness.
Yep.
It's a very basic form. You can, like you mentioned, you go listen to some of my podcasts. We talk about mindfulness a lot, but that is the essence. Just be here now, as some of the gurus would say. Be here. But you're also rewiring your brain, because we spend all of our days as caregivers walking around saying how we don't have time for self-care. We don't have time to take care of ourselves. We just need time to take care of ourselves. We can't do it. It's one more thing on the plate. What I'm telling you is it is not a thing on the plate.
Right.
You are the plate. Your self-care is the plate.
Yes. Yes.
So start telling yourself you are already taking care of yourself. Yes, we could do better. We are probably drinking some water. We could drink more water. We're brushing our teeth. Maybe we could brush them better, or whatever. We're sleeping. Sleep is self-care, y'all. When you wake up in the morning, just be like, cha-ching, took care of myself. One thing done, check it.
Yep.
And then, maybe we can work on getting more sleep later. But right now, focus on what you are doing.
Yes.
Tell yourself you can take care of yourself. You're already doing it. Let's then work on paying attention to those times that we're already doing it, and then we can work on expanding it. One more thing I would say about mindfulness too, and this really helped me, is because I used to write about, when I taught Pilates, I wrote a lot about it. And one of the things I wrote about was, all the things that you have to think about when you're thinking about Pilates. You really have to be multitasking.
Yes.
And I said, but you have to make sure that you're not scatterbrained, that we want to, so my brain is always everywhere.
Yeah, join the club.
And so when somebody would tell me about meditation or mindfulness, I'd be like, I cannot make my mind quiet for all the tea, and I can't do it. And so I heard somebody say, well, mindfulness isn't actually about like not having thoughts. It's about non-judgmental awareness.
Ooh, I've never heard it described that way. That's amazing.
Yeah. So, when you're trying to do a mindfulness activity, you're sitting there.
Yeah.
And then you start thinking about something else and you're like, crap, see, I can't do this.
Yep.
I can't do this. I can't be mindful. I suck at this.
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
A better way, a non-judgmental awareness is like, oh, interesting.
Yep.
I had a thought. I'm going to
Yep.
come back now and focus on my breath again.
Yep.
And then in a few seconds, maybe your mind goes somewhere else and you say, oh, I'm going to come back to my breath. Non-judgmental awareness. I'm not mad about the thought. I don't feel guilty about having a thought. I just come back to my breath.
Yeah.
Another John Kabat-Zinn he's a mindfulness person. He has a lot of great YouTube. Yeah, he's the man. He says, breathe and know that you are breathing. That is like a simple mindfulness.
That's totally but that's
just all you have to do is like breathe and be like, oh, look at me, I'm breathing through my nose. Oh, it feels cooler when it comes in the nose than it does when it comes out. That's pretty neat. Oh, I feel my chest rising when I breathe. Oh, now I feel my stomach rising when I breathe. Just be aware. Just be aware of the breath. That's it. It's not that hard.
It's not that hard. Oh my gosh. I love this non-judgmental awareness. Nancy Redding is a dear friend as well as a follower of Life is a Sacred Journey. And I know she's over there going, yeah, Michelle Pope, because I am my worst critic, and I am learning how to love the person that I am. I'm really good at loving other people and giving it abundantly, but when I look sometimes at myself, I'm critical. Like, you could have done this, you could have done that, you should have done this, you should have done that. So that non-judgmental awareness is that's going to be my post-it note on my mirror for the next 90 days, because I need to speak to my subconscious self about that it's not about being judgmental. It's not about trying to measure the good, the bad, what all of that. It's about living in the moment. And I practice mindfulness, right? I do, but it's what you just said to me is taking me to a whole nother level of thinking about how one approaches it is a whole nother thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important. And like, that's why I like mindfulness. Like, I practice mindfulness and meditation. Like, I love a guided meditation. Love that. But I think just being able to practice mindfulness, and one of the things that I learned when I was learning, developing my Pilates practice and teaching and stuff like that is, breathing and eye blinking are two things that you can do both voluntarily and involuntarily. So like you're breathing without telling yourself you're breathing, but then you can also say breathe in and make yourself breathe in. You can breathe out. You can change the way you're breathing. And
Right.
so when I was learning about breath work and breathing in Pilates, it was when you practice breathing in an intentional way, deeper, slower, longer, quieter, which is a healthy way of breathing.
Yes.
When you're practicing that voluntarily, then when you're not breathing voluntarily and your body's just breathing for you, it picks up those same characteristics. And my theory, just based on myself, I haven't done any studies, so this is just a theory, is that when we practice mindfulness intentionally during toothbrushing or during eating or in the morning when we are trying to work out or whatever, and we're really making our mind focus on the present moment, then we're going to find ourselves becoming more aware out in the world. You're going to notice more pockets of mindfulness in your day. And then for me, it has also helped me be more mindful in my presence with other people. So that when I'm with my mom, I'm with my mom. When I'm with my kids, I'm with my kids, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Wow. You know what, friends? This has been, I wasn't even paying attention to the
I
time.
know
I
it
have
got
just
quick.
been loving this conversation with Jeanette Yates. Jeanette, your book, how do people get the book?
So you can go to my website, theselfcaregiver.com, and you'll see the tab
Okay.
for the book there. It's of course also available on Amazon, From Guilt to
Okay.
Good, Enough, and my name, and you can find it there. Of course, I would love for people to pick it up. It's a little bit of my story, but it's also practical. It's going to give you some action steps that you can take to learn how to let go of that guilt, learn how to break free of that guilt. Although I would tell you as a mindfulness practitioner that you don't have to feel guilty for feeling guilty. You don't have to,
Right.
you just be aware of it and then you let it go.
So let's get the book, friends.
Yes.
And you know what I
Thank you.
always say, get 2 copies, only because there's somebody who you want to give it to. And that has always happened to me, and I end up having to buy another copy anyway because I give away the one, then I go, oh, you should read this. So get 2 copies so you're prepared to give it away. Send it to someone who you know is caregiving, care partnering, or just trying to live through life, because we're all, one of the things that I realize in this at the end of the year, I've been studying this because of things that are happening in my life. We are all care partners to each other.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, as we
Yeah.
walk this crazy earth and this and beautiful earth, but crazy earth sometimes. And we need to help to be our best selves so that when we present out into
Yeah.
the stratosphere, that we're bringing that good, as they used to say, juju.
That's right. Good
You know,
vibes. Good vibes. That's right.
yeah, giving those good vibes to everybody else, because then you get that back.
Yes.
I've learned that. It traveled the world, and wherever I go, the one thing I have learned: when I smile at another person, they smile back.
It's true.
Okay, they do. They may not know the language, I may not know their language, but if I smile at them, they smile. And sometimes they look away because they're like, "Oh yeah, I was staring at her." You know what I mean? So let's do this because this is important. So Jeanette Yates has a podcast, From Guilt to Good, selfcaregiver.com, and you can get the book on Amazon. You can get it on her webpage, and
And I'm on Facebook. So if you search the
Facebook.
self caregiver, I'll be there. On
Okay.
Instagram, the self caregiver. You can find me everywhere. Come hang out. I
Come
really want to
hang
meet you
out.
guys.
Come hang out. I'm going to go hang out with Jeanette a lot more because she has such an incredible story, as well as you can see that we all go through struggles. And you feel that vibration, that abundance of life that comes off of her, even in this Zoom moment with no sound and all of that. And that comes from going to therapy, because I did. Okay.
Highly recommend.
Highly recommend it. Story, you tell your story, and then you hear it for yourself, and then you move. That movement, it's almost like being reborn over and over again so that you can be your best self.
That's
All right,
right.
friends. So Jeanette Yates is somebody that Life is a Sacred Journey really wants you to get to know better. And so do that. If you're watching it right now, or if you're watching it later on down the road, please follow her. And
My
friends,
cheeks are hurting from smiling so much. Thank you so much for having me.
well, you're amazing. You're amazing. Stay on 1 second. Let
I
me
will.
end. So, friends, have a good weekend. I don't know where you are in the virtual neighborhood of Life is a Sacred Journey. If you're in the cold weather, get warm. If you're in the warm weather, wish I was with you. But go out and you know how we close this. Pet a cat, pet a dog, hug a tree, and hug yourself. And if you're someone out there that's feeling a little bit of fear right now, a little bit of anxiety, and feeling like life is not worth living, 988 is a number that you can call. People are on the other end of that line that can support you. And if you go to our Facebook page, I've listed a whole bunch of numbers for our transgender siblings out there who are might be experiencing a little bit of fear and need a little support right now. So we're with you. I'm with you. Life is a Sacred Journey supports you. I can't hold your hand through this, but I can make sure you have the resources so that you can get some help if you need it. And so have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next Friday at 8 a.m., 8 a.m., 8 a.m. Pacific Coast time. And love yourself, love yourself, because it's great when somebody loves you, but it's magnificent when you love yourself. Okay? Have a good weekend. Take care, friends. Bye.